All right, all right. So, welcome. Yoga Study Online, continued education. Good to have you. So, today we'll be reviewing bandhas. Now, bandhas is they're psycho-muscular energy locks, which redirects the flow of psychic energy in the body. In terms of Bikram yoga, you do a lot of these locks, but usually in a more subtle way. Typically, when Bikram talks about the concept of suck your stomach in, he's usually referring to one of the bandhas actually. And a few of the poses where you tuck your chin in like so, like a rabbit, and separate leg head to knee pose, even head to knee pose. Anytime your chin comes in, that's another one of the bandhas known as Jalandhara Bandha, the throat lock. Now, something to understand about the locks, it's a holding things in place kind of thing, not necessarily like a blockage or a stopping. You're not like locking something out, but instead you're locking something in, kind of holding something in place. So that's the general idea behind the energy lock. The first one I'll talk about is the Mula Bandha, the perennial contraction, pelvic floor. It's linked up to the Muladhara chakra, which is the pelvic floor chakra. It's deep red down at the pelvis if you ever look at a chakra chart. A bit of practice that we can work on is sit in like a simple cross-leg position if you can, ideally the spine straight. You can gently close the eyes and relax. Take a slow inhale. Take a slow exhale. And then within the pelvic floor, you gently pull the pelvic floor muscles up. If you're unfamiliar with what I mean by pelvic floor, it's also known as a Kegel. Basically, that pelvic floor muscle group feels like you're gently pulling up like you would a tent. Eyes closed, normal breathing. Take a big inhale. Hold the breath. Pull up on the pelvic floor and maintain that contraction for as best you can. Let it release with a slow exhale. And then try it again. Again, eyes closed. Slow inhale. Pull the breath in. Hold it. Then gently pull up on the pelvic floor and hold it in place for a moment. As you exhale, gently let it go. Good. You can breathe normally again. And this muscle group is very important. You know, it's good for sexual health. It's good for the pelvic floor muscles are good for continence. Those are important muscle groups that you'll need basically throughout your entire life. And again, the pelvic floor muscles, the bandhas, again, they're for vitality and energy. The next one comes up is the Uddiyana Bandha. It's a contraction of the abdominal muscles, control of the abdominal wall, as well as the small intestines and other digestive organs. Helps things with like the function of liver, spleen, gallbladder, pancreas, stomach. They're brought into harmony when Uddiyana Bandha is perfected. So this correlates with like the chakra down at the solar plexus kind of area. That one's usually either usually yellow, as far as the coloration goes in the chakra chart. Can be orange depending on how far up or down you are. This one's probably better with a kneeling position. Hands on the knees, lean a little bit forward, kind of like you're setting up Kapalbhati Vajrasana. Take a slow exhale, empty the lungs, and then rapidly expand and contract the abdominal muscles for as long as you're able to, keeping the air out. So you take an exhale, and basically you're pumping the stomach muscles and then noticing what you feel there. Inhale fully to reset. And this is, good practice for strengthening up those abdominal muscles. And the Bikram yoga, usually when they say like suck your stomach in, that's maintaining the lock. So this practice is something that you can do just to kind of orient yourself with the the Uddiyana Bandha, the contraction of the muscles, strengthening the muscles, because that's the other part about it. It's hard to use a muscle group when a muscle group is underdeveloped or weak. A lot of in yoga practice, we're strengthening muscles, which creates a use of the muscles and also access to the muscles. Because again, when muscles are underused, they deteriorate, and eventually you kind of lose a mental connection to those muscles as well. Another one you can practice with Uddiyana Bandha is you can sit cross legs, hands and knees, or you can stand, basically it's like a Nali breath. You're going to exhale completely, keep the breath out, contract the abdominal wall inwards and upwards as far as possible, sucking in of the muscles, holding in as long as possible without straining. And then an exhale, let it relax. Good. So basically, that's when you do like Kapalabhati breathing. You know, when you do Kapalabhati breathing, the stomach sucks in, the air pushes out, the belly relaxes, the air pulls in. So this one, you're actually just holding that in, creating like a hollowing of the abdominal muscle. Like it looks like it looks like you're showing off your ribs a little bit. So that's another one of those practices. And then finally, we can work on Jalandhara Bandha. The throat lock regulates energy to and from the mind. It also is, something that helps with truth, because when you think about it, when you speak truth, when you talk truth, throat chakra right here, usually green on the chart. If you look at a chakra chart, again, the colors, it's green here. So something you can practice with the Jalandhara Bandha is you can sit kneeling or stand, palms on knees, close eyes, relax whole body. Inhale deeply, retain the breath inside, and bend the head forward, chin to sternum. Straighten the arms, round your upper spine, and hold in as long as possible. And then bend the elbows, relax the spine, slowly relax the lock, raise the head, and exhale. So again, with that one, you inhale deeply, hold the breath, tuck the chin in, round the back, and then you just gently maintain that. And then you gently exhale as the elbows bend, the spine relaxes, and chin up. And you can repeat that a few times on your own. If you have high blood pressure, practice with care, maybe do fewer repetitions of that. So those are just some, basic exercises you can do to correlate to the bandhas. Again, Jalandhara Bandha, the throat, anytime you tuck the chin in, which puts pressure, thyroid gland, it's butterfly shaped, it sits about like right there. Lymph node glands, a little bit more on the side. If you ever had like, what is it, like strep throat, those get a little bit inflamed, puffy, swollen. And the idea whenever you tuck your chin in is you're putting pressure point on those, stimulating them, kind of like a trigger point massage on them. Thyroid gland, if you're unfamiliar with what's the thyroid gland, it does a lot of things such as body temperature regulation. It affects your metabolism, affects sleep-wake cycles, endocrine system. Generally, if someone feels cold all the time, that can be underutilized thyroid gland, whereas if someone feels hot all the time, that can be an overstimulated thyroid gland. Varies from person to person. Coming back to the Uddiyana Bandha, that's a core lock. Again, digestive organs. But also when you engage your abs, supports the spine. A lot of people have like a slouching posture, and that's usually because the abdominal muscle groups, again, when they're underutilized and they weaken, well, they no longer support, so things kind of crumble and fall. Anytime you hear it suck the stomach in, that's basically creating a core lock, abdominal muscle group contraction, supporting spine, but also supporting energy, because it's fairly universal. When you're high energy, you tend to be upright, and when you're low energy, you tend to slouch. And you can actually trick your mind into thinking it's either more energetic or more tired than it is based off your spine position. Typically, slouching will kind of bring your energy down. Back when I used to work in the restaurant industry, one of the first body language things that I think I really became aware about, a manager was teaching me this. You can't really sell a table any more food is when people basically cross their arms, slump back in their chair, and kind of slouch, because basically they're done, they're tapped out, they're full. So you're not going to be able to sell them any more desserts or drinks or anything because they've already had enough. And again, that's because they're starting the rest and digest process. Whereas when you're upright, standing up tall picks up your energy, elevates. A common behavior that you might notice is like when people wake up in the morning, they tend to do like an arm overhead and a little back bend because you're basically stretching open the abdominal muscle, opening up digestive organs. And that's a very common thing. And that's actually one of the reasons we start with half moon back bend in the Bikram series in the beginning to elevate your energy and pick you up. And then coming back around again to the Mula Bandha, the pelvic floor, again for continence, holding things in, sexual vitality. The thing all these bandhas have in common is when you contract muscles, and that's actually true with all muscles, it promotes circulation. And circulation is super important for your body's health. When you cut off circulation, your body no longer receives the red blood cells, which provide the oxygen. White blood cells can't really travel around as well. Minerals and nutrients that your body needs. The way your body flushes out things that get in your bloodstream, that also happens circulation. So basically, open circulation creates wellness and health. A lot of the bandhas do. Any muscle contraction does stimulate circulation as well. So that's another part about it. When you combine all three, Mula Bandha, Uddiyana Bandha, and Jalandhara Bandha, again, pelvic floor, abdominals, and throat, this is what's known as Maha Bandha. That's the combination of all of them. So what you can do with that, sitting cross-legged or kneeling, pull up the pelvic floor, suck the stomach in, and then tuck in the chin and just breathe normally. And with the stomach, inhale, chin up, belly relaxes, pelvic floor relaxes. And again, the idea is this creates a flow of energy up and down the spine, but also without letting the energy leak out and flow out unnecessarily extra, kind of keeps things in place. So those are the basic bandhas. While some things don't necessarily have official terminology, the idea of an energy lock is persistent in other things. For example, the 26 and 2 series, you hear the phrase lock the knee. Again, what that is a muscle contraction. In this particular instance of lock the knee, it's in the quadricep thigh. It pulls up the kneecap, the knee joint, so it's supported and stable. Common misconception, and this does come a little bit more from other forms of exercise, where people think lock the knee is like hyperextending, when really it's a straightening and a contraction that stabilizes. That's the ultimate goal of all bandhas, is to create a stabilization through, where energy is not like, again, leaking out or all over the place, but contained peacefully. When you hear that, lock the knee, that's really what it means. Be conscious not to jam the knee back. That's a super common error that people make with lock the knee, is they straighten the leg, but then they continue trying to make the leg straighter, but it's not actually going straighter, it's actually going backwards, which creates, well, a problem with the knee, because then it's overextending. So I'll use my hand as an example. So if a knee normally bends like that and then that's straight, then sometimes what people do is they overextend, so then the knee kind of bends backwards. And sometimes you'll see someone sitting in knee pose, and then they're kind of hyperextending the knee by putting weight too far back. So the correction for that would be shift weight forward to big toe, straighten the leg but squeeze the thigh, create a slight softness in the back of the knee, and then feel like there's a lifting upwards of energy, and that will create stability of the knee. It'll strengthen the thigh better. And again, anytime you do a contraction of a muscle, stimulate circulation, which can be good for knee health. But again, in the system of bandhas correlating to chakras, lock the knee is not really part of that system, but good to know. All the bandhas are incredibly practical. They vary from person to person, but they are practical for everyday stuff, because you are always using your pelvic floor for the bathroom and whatnot. You're always using your abdominal muscles for spine support and digestive system, all that. You are using your throat, your thyroid gland, your lymph node glands. You don't really think about using your thyroid or lymph node glands, they're more automatic, but your body is always activating different hormones and stuff throughout the body, depending on what you're doing. So another exercise we can work on with Mula Bandha, the pelvic floor, is the contract and release of the Mula Bandha rhythmically. Typically like 1 per second, like a contraction and then a release, a contraction and then a release. That's pretty much good. When you are doing that, when you're working this contraction, that's where you really want to be. So again, you can sit cross-legged kneeling. Usually sitting up straight is good. Your breathing is normal. Your eyes are typically focused on a point. A contraction of the pelvic floor, and then you hold it up for a moment, and then a gentle release. Another contraction, you hold it up for a moment. It's not just like on, off, on, off. It's like on, and then a gentle release. Contract again, and a gentle release. Do one more. Contract, and then a gentle release. So again, practice stage 1. Can just be, again, the eyes closed, inhale breath, contract pelvic floor, and then you hold it as long as possible. A secondary one is the rhythmic contraction, pulling up, releasing, pulling up, releasing, but maintaining a long hold because it doesn't really do good. And this is true with all exercises. A lot of people like to move fast because they think fast is good. Like if you do like a lot of weight rips, you're getting more. That's actually not true. It's more controlled muscle movement. You get a lot more with controlled muscle movement, especially like a release and slow control. Uddiyana Bandha, again, the practice that we tried was the holding as long as possible. Again, similar to the other Mula Bandha, right? With that, again, kneeling, lean forward, exhale, lungs empty, and then you pull up the core and you hold it in as long as possible. You can actually even breathe normally while holding it in. The other one is the rapid in and out. You kind of do that in Kapalbhati breathing. Again, exhale, belly in, normal inhale, belly out. And you really want to do that slow. And you really want to emphasize the way the belly does move. Belly relax, pull in, belly relax, pull in. And again, a review of the Jalandhara Bandha. There's the holding, and that's mostly it with the Jalandhara Bandha, because you don't really want to do like this with your head too much, because that's too much head movement. You just mostly hold and release. Now, as far as cueing in a class, you can put it in a eagle pose. You just, arms crossed, legs crossed, you're sitting and you're maintaining, and you just pull up on the pelvic floor and you can release it. It can be done in triangle pose. Again, when your arms are open and you're pivoting, pull up on the pelvic floor, you pull the belly in. Even down dog, you can pull up on the pelvic floor. Any kind of warriors, really. Uddiyana Bandha is a lot more of the active one. You do that much more. Standing at knee pose, suck in the stomach, pull the core in. Downward dog, when you're doing downward dog, that letter A shape, your stomach muscles pull in, not just letting the belly kind of hang loose. How you would cue that, and like, if I was teaching a vinyasa class and I was talking people in their downward dog, push your toes down, squeeze your thighs, lift your tailbone up, pull your stomach in, Uddiyana Bandha, wrap your shoulders around your back and push through the hands. You just kind of sprinkle it in there. Again, for beginners, the beginner concept, you can just say suck the stomach in, pull the abdominal in. For people that are a little bit more practiced and experienced, you can literally just say Uddiyana Bandha in your downward dog. Squeeze your legs, squeeze your thighs. Uddiyana Bandha, stomach in, eyes open, normal breathing, and you can pull that in. Other places you'll find Uddiyana Bandha. Anytime you're doing a forward rounding, head to knee pose, separate leg head to knee pose, rabbit pose, stomach in. You can incorporate it into Paschimottanasana, forward fold stretching when you grab your big toes. Separate leg stretching, legs are wide, head is down, stomach is in. You even do it a little bit in the half moon, the Bikram style half moon when you side bend. Abdominals pull in and up, and then you half moon side bend. The belly is not like out and relaxed. The abdominals are in tight. Even in pranayama deep breathing, the abdominal muscles stay contracted. Not quite as deep as Kapalbhati breathing, but still abdominal contraction. Jalandhara mudra, again, that will happen in standing knee pose naturally, head down to knee, separate leg head to knee pose, rabbit pose. Anytime your chin tucks, you'll do it. In a vinyasa style class, cat cow, when your chin up and then chin in, you kind of do a little Jalandhara Bandha. But again, never fast, right? It's always like slow and then up, release and back and forth. And Mahabandha, the combination of all three, there's not a whole lot of poses where you'd necessarily do that at the same time. You could do that in standing at knee pose. You could do that in, again, some of the poses where you're naturally tucking your chin in. But most of the time, you're not going to have Mahabandha because the chin tucked in is not necessarily as common in most poses. And in fact, when you're doing like a back bend, you're not doing most of that stuff anyways. But you can do it in like a meditation practice. When I teach alternate nostril breath, which is like the inhale and exhale through one side, usually I'll throw in a little bit of the bandhas where you can kind of inhale full. You close the nose, focus forward, stomach in, chin in, and pull up the pelvic floor. And then when you exhale and you release the side, your chin lifts, your pelvic floor relaxes, your abdominals relax. And you usually do it when your breath is full on that one. There are other breathing exercises where breath retention is found, where you kind of inhale, you take a full breath in, you hold it, chin in, stomach in, pelvic floor contract. And then when the exhale happens, chin lifts, belly relaxes, pelvic floor relaxes. And that's usually the beginner method when I'm teaching like a regular vinyasa class. we kind of sneak it in there, the Mula Bandha, but I don't usually refer to it as Mula Bandha. I just tell them, like, when we're doing the breathing exercise, inhale, hold in, chin in, stomach in, pelvic floor. And then when they exhale, they release. And they're practicing all the things without putting all the names on it. Hopefully that helps answer your question on how you cue for incorporating it. Yeah. And these things can be practiced independently as well. Typically, the idea, if you are practicing this stuff, it's usually in coordination after a yoga class because you want all the muscles warmed up and stimulated and ready, and you want your mind in the right state of mind. It can be practiced like a first thing in the morning thing. Typically at night, you don't really want to do too much exciting stuff if you're kind of decompressing the day, just because, again, as I mentioned, when you engage your abdominal muscles, it picks up your energy. When you engage all these muscles, it kind of elevates your energy. So if you're trying to settle into the night, settle down for bed, probably not a good idea to have like a cup of coffee right before bed wrong directions. Most of the stuff is usually morning practice in conjunction with a regular practice. Other things I can say, again, like chakra points, just a quick review of the chakra points. From the top of the head, there's one that floats kind of like above the head, the divine energy. This is usually like a bright purple. And then you have the forehead, which is also purple. The one at the face, which is blue. Heart, green. Yellow. Stomach, orange. And pelvic floor is red. And they all have names. So at the very top of the head, the crown chakra, Sahasrara, kind of in the face, but really like the third eye, purple. That is the third eye chakra. Vishuddha, this one's blue, throat chakra. Heart is green, Anahata, heart chakra. Manipura, which is the solar plexus, that one's yellow, kind of right where at the bottom of the ribs, above the belly button. And then more down at the belly, that one's orange. That's Svadhisthana. And then the one at the pelvis, down at the very bottom, that's the Muladhara root chakra. And again, the idea is flow of energy, kundalini energy, life energy, vitality, spirituality, because what makes it spirituality is there's a light, you're awake, you're present, you're conscious. You can't really measure that with science necessarily. Like, you can't measure consciousness. When you dissect something, you can't see where the consciousness is. It's not really a measurable thing in that kind of way. And the idea behind the bandhas is, again, that this life energy is contained and flowing through the body up and down. And that kind of helps spiritual awakening. When, again, as I mentioned with muscles, if you don't use a muscle and the muscle deteriorates and atrophies and weakens, then you can't use a muscle because you lose a connection to it. And the same thing can be said about spiritual energy and life vitality. If you don't use your spiritual energy and life vitality, you become disconnected from your life energy, spirituality, vitality, and then it becomes harder to use it because of that disconnection. And this is where yoga practice comes in. Yoga practice to help you figure out how to use that stuff to become connected and the whole union of body, mind, and spirit. And sometimes you have to work physically to understand energetically, emotionally, spiritually. Physically is usually the easier part to work. And then once you start to understand the physical side of it, then you understand more of the mental side of it. And then after the mental side of it, the more spiritual side of it. That's basically the fundamentals of it. Hopefully that helped a lot. Feel free to send us any questions via email if something comes to mind later. Well, thank you so much for your time. Namaste.